Now, last year at the SEMA show, we stopped by the FAST booth, and they showed us their new Easy EFI system, which is a very simple package approach to adding electronic fuel injection to basically any car, a hot rod, street rod, muscle car, whatever you want. And today, Brian Reese is here with the latest iteration of the FAST Easy EFI. What are we looking at that's new?
The original Easy EFI was capable of supporting 625 horsepower. We've been off to a great start with that. Customer feedback has been incredible. Now we're answering the next question from the customer. What do I do if I'm making 800, 900 horsepower?
Sure.
Well, the next answer is a dual quad. Just like two carburetors, we now have the dual quad upgrade kit for the Easy EFI, capable of supporting up to 1,000 horsepower.
So in this situation, you would buy a standard dual quad intake manifold and add a second throttle body? Is that what we're talking about?
That's correct. It's as easy as picking out a dual quad 4150 flange manifold. You select one of our two base EFI kits. You have the kit that comes with all the equipment you see here, and then we have a kit with the fuel system included. Okay. You're going to run the dual quad, you pick up this dual quad upgrade package, and you're off and running.
There you go. So it's basically just adding the second stuff.
Yes, the dual quad kit includes a second throttle body, the required wiring harness, and a dual quad linkage kit.
So if I'm a guy who already has, the single throttle body system, I can buy the upgrade kit if I'm going to do the duals?
That's correct. Same kits. They all work together.
Right on. So I've been hearing a lot of good things about this Easy EFI system. There's been a lot of good testing. Tell me, customer feedback has been strong on reliability, and we're all asking about the self-tune.
This has been nothing but phenomenal. I mean, it's exceeded our expectations. We spent 2.5 years developing the self-tune, and I'll be the first to tell you, not all self-tuning claims are created equal.
You're right.
It's been a long haul through R&D process, and we've taken all the time to make this thing really intelligent. It can actually weed out the learning curve. It takes the good learning and the bad learning. We throw out the bad stuff and only change the mapping on the good information. This thing is really awesome.
Interesting. So what's the time frame of the self-tune to really get a car dialed in? How much do you have to drive it?
It's incredibly fast. On the dyno, within 2 poles, we're making peak power. You get in the car...
2 poles?
2 poles. 2 poles, we're at peak power, and from there you're driving. So we've got customers that call us and think it's pre-tuned. It's that fast.
Okay, but peak power isn't necessarily the hardest thing about EFI. What about cold start, drivability, part throttle, the real tricky stuff?
Well, I'm glad you mentioned that, because you're exactly right. Peak power is actually the easiest part of the tune. We pride ourselves in cold start and drivability. This thing is extremely fast. We have the O2 sensor coming on board within the first 30 seconds of operation, and as soon as you're driving, it's learning instantaneously. So it's unbelievably quick.
And I guess that 30-second window is for that O2 sensor to heat up and start feedback properly?
That's right. As fast as we can get the O2 sensor up to speed, it starts to work.
Interesting. Well, I'm impressed with it. The completeness of the package is the other thing that I like. Tell us again what comes with even the single, throttle body model.
Our strategy here was to include everything in the box. There's nothing worse than buying an EFI package and then having to run down to the auto parts store or call somebody to buy parts. So we literally pulled this thing out on the conference table and said every single part we needed. It comes with the throttle body, the sensors, the wiring harness, the computer, the handheld display, all the fittings, all the hoses and tubing, everything you really need.
So if this is a self-tuning system, what am I doing with the handheld tuner?
This is the most basic of setup tools right here. You have to answer a few simple questions. Do you have a V8 engine? Yes. How big is the engine? It's a 350 cubic inch engine. It's a very simple approach here. We actually didn't have any of our EFI guys define what we wanted to answer in here. We went to our carburetor guys and said, let's make this so you can understand it.
That's a good approach. Well, now thinking like a carburetor guy, I might be afraid of a dual quad carb setup because a dual quad carburetor isn't necessarily easy to tune. Does this add an extra step?
Not at all. That's the beauty of this thing. Everything is handled within the brains of the ECU. If you can get it bolted on, you've got it set up right.
And this being the SEMA show, where everything's brand new, tell me a little bit about the availability.
These are in stock and shipping. We've got hundreds of them out there, so you can call today, order it, and have it tomorrow.
Right on. There's a lot of piece parts that make your car run right that aren't really super sexy, but somebody's got to do the work to figure them out. Tell me about this crank position sensor.
This crank sensor is actually a very modern crank sensor. The difference what we have here is we're actually incorporating an OEM crank trigger sensor into this. So where some of the competing parts out there have magnets in an aluminum dial,
sure,
we actually have a copy of what's in your 2010 Corvettes and Camaros and things like that.
Really? So I bet there's a bunch of obvious advantages of using that.
Well, it's obviously something that's been tested and tried by the OEM, so it's an incredibly reliable piece, it's very accurate, and it's a perfect fit for our XFI fuel injection systems.
So the fact that you guys did the research on this tells me that there's some problems out there.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of good parts out there, but this is a new entry for Fast, and we wanted to get into the crank trigger business because this is a component that's required for a lot of our XFI sales. So we spent the time engineering the right product and all the modern electronics to bring out the crank trigger.
Well, following that philosophy of trying to be as complete as possible, we come to this corner of the booth where we've got some intake manifolds.
That's right. Our engineering department's been incredibly busy. We've followed up on the success of our LSX manifold, and we've introduced a few new versions this year. We have over here a 2010 Camaro LS3 manifold, now in stock and shipping. Follows on the same strategies we had for the original LSX. And back here, we have the new truck manifold. This is actually good for racing as well. This manifold is incredibly powerful, and if you can fit it under your hood, this is the one to run.
So tell me a little bit about this. What kind of power improvements and advantages are we seeing with this, from the throttle body back?
This is actually a bolt-on 30 horsepower gain with no torque loss. Typically with intake manifolds, you can gain some torque or gain some power, but they're inversely proportional. In this case, we've worked hard enough to make these runners ideally tuned, so you gain power and lose no torque.
Wow. And what cylinder head package is this bolt to?
This is actually for an LS1, LS6 cathedral port cylinder head.
Okay. And there's a million of those things out, and those make great donor motors for, muscle car swaps.
That's what we were thinking. As long as you can fit this under the hood of a Cal induction or in a race car, this is the way to go.
People liked the truck manifolds because they did make a lot of torque, but they are ugly as sin.
Well, we did pay attention to how it looks, as you can see as well.
Yeah, it looks great. So again, going back to this LS3 version, what I find intriguing is you display this with the runners being exploded. Tell me what this is all about.
Well, what we're trying to show off here is that this is a very unique manifold. This is a modular design. You can take the lid of this manifold off and pull each individual runner out by itself. That makes for easy porting and modification and tuning it into your exact engine.
Now, what kind of power gains are we seeing with the LSXR manifold?
On the car applications, this is a 15 to 20 horse, depending on your car.
That's fantastic. Well, we see these on display. Are these prototypes, or are these things ready to go?
Nope, these are production parts right out of our warehouse. You can call today and order it and get it tomorrow.
Excellent. Well, it seems like you guys never run out of ideas for cool EFI and power-making parts.
It's been a busy year. We continue to listen to the customer, and we're always trying to deliver the parts they want.
Right on. Well, thanks, Brian.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.